This is an unofficial tutorial of the Gear Trains editor, which will be replaced by a more polished tutorial once this new capability has been tested more thoroughly. When you enter step 4, and if you have more than 2 gears in your assembly, you will have to manually define the configuration of your gear tree so that Gearify knows what gears you're using and what gears are connected to each other. When you begin this step, you now can double-click to select any of the available pitch curves as your starting gear. I will choose A1, double-click, and then I can move my mouse around to decide where I want to position the gear. I can also enter the XY coordinates of the gear placement explicitly if I want to. Once I'm ready to add my gear, I can either use the A key on the keyboard to place the gear, or I can use the Add Gear button here. So I will just press the A key to add it here. It will now offer me another gear to add to connect to the last gear that I placed. Now I can change what that newly added gear is by double-clicking to select a different gear template here on the left-hand panel. I'll choose this B3 gear and use the A key again to add it. I can keep changing my selection and just use the A key to keep placing and adding new gears and just connect them together as I go. Just double click to change my selection, A key again to add a new gear. I can press the escape key or double click on an empty space to deselect everything if I choose to. And I can also press the D key on the keyboard to delete a given gear selection. Press D again, press D again. When you delete, everything below that gear in the instance tree will be deleted. I can also use, double click to select this. I can also use the delete selected button and delete a gear that way as well. Another important capability is that as you add the gears, first of all, you can escape to deselect everything, and I can place a new root gear if I choose to. Just start that in a new location. I can double click on any of the instances. I can select them either from the viewport or in the instance tree to change my instance selection. That's an already placed gear. And from there, I can start adding more gear instances. Again, use the A key, double click to change my selection, A key again, press the escape key when I'm done and deselect everything. But there are more options in this. I can change to an internal gear selection. So for instance, I can select internal, show options for internal here. And now when I place it, I'll be placing an internal gear. I'll switch that to an A3 gear and hit add. Now notice that the green options were reduced because these are the only valid gears that I can actually connect to this internal gear. So I'll use the A key and place some gears here. Add this one as well. It's also possible to add an internal gear as a child of another gear. So if I hit internal here, I can place this one as well. It would be up to the designer to determine how to make that physically functional depending on the gear heights and thicknesses and so on. But it is possible to place internal gears in this fashion as well. Finally, you can create an axle connected gear. So just click the axle option and it will tell you, and you can use either, let's say I use this gear, I can axle connect either an external or an internal gear. I'll use an external one for this. And I can say add gear or use the A key, either one. I can set the angle by modifying this attribute and say add gear. And I can just connect more gears together. So if I want, chain them together, and then I'll create another internal gear here on the end, like so, and add that. And press escape when I'm done. Now, one important option that you will see here is that there is a shared attribute, which you can check when you're placing a new instance. I recommend keeping that on. What that does is that it makes sure that all of the gears that you're adding, if they're the same type of gear, they will all be represented by duplicates of the exact same gear. And as you do your tooth trimming, it will reuse the same gear rather than making distinct copies where the trimming would be different. So it'll try to find basically the same for all of these occurrences of the same gear shape. It'll just use a single version of that gear, and the trimming that happens to one of them will affect all of them. Whereas if you don't use shared, they'll all be trimmed separately. And the reason that's important is because when you actually confirm and you say begin trim, that means that there will be a lot fewer gears to have their teeth trimmed, because it'll just be reusing the same gear and the same teeth instead of making many repeated copies of that shape for all the instances you placed. I will try to explain this a bit better when I post the official tutorial, but the general takeaway is you should probably keep shared checked most of the time unless you want to wait longer, unless you want each unique gear placement to be treated as a distinct object. So I click begin trim, and this will be just a little bit slower because there are still a fair number of instances, but since I am reusing those copies, it is a lot faster than it otherwise would be. And there you go. And you can actually, as before, you can look and visualize the contacts. You can turn those on and off. And yeah, you can actually preview the assembly. You can roll it forward and back and so on. So yeah, this works quite well, I would say. And then you can proceed to your export step, and everything is the same as before. You just toggle on what things you want visible, and you can toggle the visibility, and then you can perform an export. And yeah, I think that should give you the basics for this capability. I will be posting a better tutorial. This is very informal, very off the cuff, but I hope you find this useful so that you can test the capability, and please let me know if you find any bugs or issues. One more thing I almost forgot, which I think is a big usability enhancement. In the previous version, if you were to return to step 3 after setting up your instance tree would be entirely deleted. And this can be kind of a big problem if you're setting up a tree and you realize that you're not getting sufficient amounts of contact after your trimming step, and you have to go back and revise your tooth calculations, and then you come back forward and you have to set up your tree all over again. And now at this editor, it's even more work because you may have a more complex configuration. So in this version, if I return to step 3 and I make modifications, let's say I'll just change the number of teeth here, recompute the gear teeth. Give that a moment. And then go next. It'll actually remember, it will update the teeth, but it'll remember the tree configuration that was used so that you don't have to set that up all over again, which I think is very important. But do take note that if I go too far back, if I return to step 2, it'll give me a warning that I have created a custom gear instance tree in step 4, and it'll ask me if I'm sure I want to return to step 2, because at this point it will actually delete the instance tree. So if I just say no, I can not proceed so that I don't lose it. So that just gives you a safeguard, but lets you know when it would actually be deleted. So big usability enhancement, I think. So okay, I think that does it.